Well, I just want to believe that you've been doing well. Let's talk about what we call persuasion. And we are saying that persuasion is the power to transform. It's not merely informing, but it's about transforming. So if you are communicating and you're not making an impact in the lives of people, then you are short of persuasion. In this discussion, we shall be able to teach us how to become a persuasive speaker. Welcome to Marketplace Media, an online platform that engages, equips, and encourages believers to say, inawezekana. If this is your first time being here, we encourage you to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Let's keep sharing, let's keep subscribing, let's keep commenting, let's keep the communication growing. And for those of you that are subscribing, thank you so much. May God bless you. Now, let's begin today by continuing with leadership lessons from the Gospels, more especially from the book of Acts. And today we shall talk about persuasion. And we are saying that leaders speak to transform, not merely to inform. And we shall find our reading from the book of Acts, chapter 26, all the way to the end, that is verse 29. Desmond Tutu gave this a quote. He said, "Don't raise your voice, improve your argument." We take it again. Don't raise your voice, improve your argument. What do you make of that? Do you agree with it? We encourage you to go to whether you're watching us on Facebook, that is John Kemani, or whether you're watching us on our YouTube channel. Please, we encourage you to go there and tell us, do you agree with this quote by Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop of in South Africa? Don't raise your voice, improve your argument. Now, maybe you are asking yourself, what is persuasion? What is persuasion? Please, let me know what you think is persuasion. Every time when you hear the word persuasion or persuasive speaking, what comes to your mind? I am watching, I'll be able to read your comment. So please join me and go to my Facebook account. Let me know what it means to be a persuasive speaker. So just write it there. I'll be able to read it. Okay, especially on my Facebook account, I'll be able to read it. Okay, so please let me get those comments here. I'll be able to read them. What is persuasive speaking? What is persuasion? Okay, we run a definition this way. It is a process. Note the word, it is a process in which one person or entity, it's a process in which one person or entity tries to influence another. That word is very important. Tries to influence another person or a group of persons to change their beliefs or behavior. So there are important words here that you need to note. It's a process. It's not an event. It's something that you do day in, day out. And it is directed to a person or to a group of persons. And the goal of engaging the person is simply to try and change their convictions. You want to change the way they think. You want to change the way they believe. You want to change their behavior. So the communication basically in persuasion is simply geared so that people can change their stand, so that they can change their thinking, so that they can take an action. Persuasion speaking is geared towards acquiring a desired behavior, a desired action. So when a teacher is teaching in class, it is not merely informing, but it's more than that. It is to help his or her students to be able to pattern their lives, to be able to do that which the teacher is teaching them. Maybe persuasion speaking is really evident when it comes, especially in church and also in politics, because a politician would want to talk to his constituents such that they will decamp, they will not vote in candidate A, but they will vote in candidate B. So that kind of lobbying, that kind of persuading people, that kind of sharing information so that the people can be able to discard their former belief system. They can be able to decamp from their possessions. They can be able to deny and throw away their affiliations and betray their former affiliates and embrace new ones. It's all about persuasion speaking. So it's a process in which one person is persuades one person, and so that they change their beliefs or their behavior. Now, among the most persuasive speakers in history, among them is Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, of course, was a persuasive speaker. Although he was wicked, he was able to persuade, especially his people, especially in Germany, so that they would develop hatred against every Jewish person. Martin Luther, in his time, of course, is seen as a persuasive person because he was able to tell every American, black American, that time, I have a dream. Another persuasive speaker is Barack Obama. Yes, we can. The late Professor Wangari Maathai, our current president, President William Ruto, can be classified as persuasive speakers. Now, we can ask, what are those traits of persuasive leaders? What is it that they share? When you're looking for a persuasive leader, what is it that you see? You see 5 things. Number 1, they are always sincere. And we need to say it here. If you're not sincere, if what you say is not what you mean, if you're not genuine, if you're not honest, if you're not real, if what you say you're simply lying, then we cannot classify you. You cannot be classified as a persuasive speaker. Persuasive leaders begin every interaction with the intention, with the goal, with the motive of building trust, of developing credibility. It is not what we call, flattering people. It's about communicating the truth so that you become credible, so that you become somebody that is believable. You need to develop a message that is believable, okay? Number 2, they are attentive. This simply means that these people take time to listen. They are active listeners. They always want to respond to 2 important questions. Question number 1, they will ask. Every time when they are interacting with people, they will ask themselves 2 important questions. Question number 1, what do they want? In other words, they will want to know their interests. They want to know their problems. They want to know their challenges. What do they want? And what do they need is the second question. What do they need? So they are very attentive. A persuasive speaker will not just go out there and start communicating without first understanding what is it that they want and what is it that they need. Number 3, they are inquisitive. In other words, they ask questions. They are curious. They desire to know. And for them to be able to know, they ask what we call open-ended question. They don't ask closed questions, because closed questions, sometimes they can be judgmental. Sometimes they are limiting. And they are restrictive. They are restrictive. They simply are inviting a certain kind of a response. But an open-ended question will always invite that other person to share a lot of information, to share as much information as possible. That kind of asking open-ended question also helps in problem solving, because when you ask this open-ended question, of course you invite 2 or 3 views from the person that is responding to the question. Number 4, persuasive leaders are empathetic. They are empathetic. Now, before you can persuade someone, this is very important. We really need you to think about it. Now, think about this. Before you can persuade someone, you must walk a mile in their shoes. Before you can persuade someone, you must walk a mile in their shoes. Now, the politicians of our class understand this passage more than pastors understand. Because during campaign, you always find our politicians going into the villages. You know, they would even prefer walking and knocking our doors. They would even call us. Them personally would actually call us. They would want to mingle with people. Why? Because they know before you can persuade someone, you must walk a mile in their shoes. So they would come and sit with us, eat maharagwe, the ones that were eating. You know, come and sit in our pews and worship with us. But immediately once they are erected, they would always move away from their homes. They have tainted their cars. Their phones never goes through because they no longer need to persuade us again. And this makes that and pastors, you know, they were always visiting us. They are always praying with us. They always sit with us. They take tea with us in the local hotels. That's why they are empathetic. Number 5, they are relatable. They are relatable. You know, this means that they are always looking for a common ground. A persuasive person does not want to stick on one line of argument. They would want to know what is it that the other people are feeling. They want to know their stand. They want to know their positions. And so they would always come. They would always travel so that they meet at the middle. They would make a compromise. So such that it's a win-win kind of a discussion. And actually it is pretty easy, especially if you possess the traits that we've already discussed, because by just listening, asking, caring, and being yourself, you instantly become more relatable. You are able to understand where people are coming from. You are able to understand people's frustrations, people's ambitions, people's limitations. And so you are able to get closer to them, and you are able to make compromises such that they are drawn to you. You become attractive. So one of the most persuasive leaders that we are discussing in the book of Acts is none other but Paul. When he stood before King Agrippa. And I want us to go and read chapter 26 of Acts so that we can be able to see the things that made him to become a persuasive leader. Because we want to share with us 16 traits within the book of the New Testament. So we will read the book of Acts. Let's get there. The book of Acts, chapter 26. We'll read the whole of it. We'll keep on reading slowly by slowly. Once we give you the point. So I hope you are ready. Please remember to like our page and tell us where you're watching us from. Okay, so there we go. In verse 1, this is what we read. Agrippa told Paul, "You may now speak for yourself, Paul." And Paul stretched out his hand and said. Now the first trait that we get from verse 1 is that he appeared relaxed, yet used animated gestures. Look the way he stretched out his hand. Stretching out his hand simply means he is inviting. He is saying, I am energetic, I am confident. Every time when you speak, you begin by stretching your hand. It's like you're inviting the people. It's like you are showing that you are connecting with the people, that you are not distant. As opposed to when you fold your hands like this and communicate with people, you show you're not part of them. When you stretch out your hand like this, I believe you can say, when you stretch out your hand like this, because this is what Paul was simply, it shows you are relaxed. But again, it also shows that you are ready, you are strong, you're not bored, you are interested in people. In verse 2, we get the next trait, which we say, King Agrippa, I am glad for this chance to defend myself before you today on all these charges that my own people have brought against me. In this one, the trait that we get is that he was humble and grateful. He did not take the opportunity to stand before this great king for granted. So he was courteous. He observed and actually thanked King Agrippa for giving him the chance to stand before him. A persuasive speaker, before you begin to speak, you always thank the people. Thank your host. Tell him, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to come and share. You'd always want to tell the viewers and the listeners, thank you very much for choosing to speak, to listen to me, for choosing to watch me. So gratefulness, gratitude, humility is a very important trait of persuasive speakers. Number 3, we find it in verse 3, is that he affirmed the king's knowledge and expertise. Do not think that the people that you're talking with are useless. Thank them. And this is what Paul said. You know a lot about our religious custom and the beliefs that divide us. So I ask you to listen patiently to me. Look at that. So he affirmed. He told the king, I know you're not ignorant. I know you are well informed. I salute your expertise. I salute what you know. I salute the knowledge. That is very important. Because, when you fail to do that, it simply says that you want to talk down to the people. And when people realize that you're talking down to them, the quickest thing that they do is that they tune off. They don't want to listen to you. Okay? Number 4, we find it in verse 4, is that he admitted his life was an open book. He admitted his life was an open book. Let's read verse number 4. All the Jews have known me since I was a child. They know what kind of a life I lived in my own country and in Jerusalem. And if they are willing, they could tell you that I was a Pharisee, a member of a group that is stricter than any other group. In other words, he admitted that my life is known. And it is very important for a persuasive speaker, unreachable, aloofness, because when you communicate in a way that shows you don't belong to their class, then people will not be able to be challenged. They will not change their behavior. Remember, the goal of persuasive speaking is not to impress. The goal of persuasive speaking is in making an impact. And Paul, by admitting that his life was an open book, was simply saying, I am one of you. You know much about me. I'm not a mysterious person. The fifth thing is he reminded them of his strict past. He reminded them of his strict past. Verse 5 and 8. Let's read verse 5 and 8. We shall read it here. Verse 5 and 8. I think we've read verse 4. So we read verse 6. Now I am on trial because I believe the promise God made to our people long ago. Day and night, our 12 tribes have earnestly served God, waiting for these promised blessings. King Agrippa, because of this hope, the Jewish leaders have brought charges against me. Why should any of you doubt that God raises the dead to life? I once thought that I should do everything I could to oppose Jesus of Nazareth. Look at the way this guy is actually um, putting forward the argument. He reminded them, verse 5, of his strict past, where he had come from in verse 5 to 8. In verse 9 to 11, he identified with their opposition to the life he now embraced. In other words, he agreed that which you are fighting me, that which you are against today, is true. He did not want to defend it. He simply says, I am in constant opposition with you because of what I have believed in. Number 7, he used narrative to defend his changed life. He used narrative to defend his changed life. In verse 12 to 18, what Paul did is that, and I want us to read there so that we can see verse 12 to 18. King Agrippa, one day, he is simply telling his story. He says, King Agrippa, one day I was on my way to Damascus with the authority and permission of the chief priest. About noon, I saw a light brighter than the sun. It flashed from heaven on me and on everyone traveling on me. We all fell to the ground. Then I heard a voice say to me in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why are you so cruel to me? It's foolish to fight against me. Who are you? I asked. And the Lord answered, I am Jesus. I'm the one you are so cruel to. So stand up. I appeared to you. I have appeared to you because I have chosen you to be my servant. You are to tell others what you've learned about me and what I'll show you later. The Lord said, I will protect you from the Jews and from the Gentiles that I'm sending you to. I want you to open their eyes so that they will turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God. Then their sins will be forgiven, and by faith in me, they will become part of God's people. King Agrippa, I obeyed the vision of heaven. Very interesting. He shared the narrative. He shared his story. And every time when we share stories, people are interested in hearing the stories. Look at the choice of words. He is dramatic. There is exclamation marks going back to the energy that we talked about. Stories are very important to build a story, to build a case. Stories are very important so that you can be able to engage people, to hook people, to retain the retention of people. Number 8, he described his motive as pure and constructive. It is very important when you're building and the goal is to be able to change people's behavior and attitude and stance. You need to challenge their political stance. You need to challenge them so that they can stop being non-believers, so that they can give their lives to Jesus Christ. So in that case, you need to tell them that your motives are clear, they are pure, they are constructive. Number 9, Paul considered that he was obeying a divine vision. In other words, he was simply saying, verse 19 to 20, he was simply saying, what I am doing, the reason why I am standing before you, King Agrippa, is because I am doing this because God has given me the mandate. God has charged me. It is always important as you persuade people to quote the source of your authority, to quote the source of your persuasion, to be able to tell them, I am doing this because I have a lot of burden. I have a lot of love. I have a lot of desire. I am burdened. I am disturbed when I see the streets of Nairobi dirty, when I see children walking naked, when I see children walking without shoes, when I see women giving birth in unprotected areas, when I see teens getting expectant before their time, when I see, that kind of authority, tell them what is pushing you. What is it that is making you to present or to ask them to change their position? Number 10, he explained that his obedience to God cost him trouble. In other words, again, as we previously said, he is simply being open. That's why he explained that when I became obedient to God, it cost me trouble. So the point number 10 of a persuasive Paul is that he explained that his obedience to God cost him trouble. But again, the 11th thing is that he illustrated God's favor in his life. This is what we find in verse 21. Verse 22. Let's read. Verse 22, we read, but all this time God has helped me. Let's read. But all this time God has helped me, and I have preached both to rich and to the poor. I have told them only what the prophets and Moses said would happen. Very, very interesting of what Paul says in this very passage. And we are saying, he said, this is what I've done. In other words, his argument was be able to put visuals so that would prove your point. If you're persuading people to move from point B, to move from building, it's very important for them to put visuals of the kind of building that you are bringing to them. Trait number 12, he affirmed that he preached the scripture. He affirmed that he preached the scripture. It is very good to build believability so that you become credible. It's always important to tell whoever it is that you're speaking to that your source is genuine. Your source is trusted. Your source is not full of errors. It's clean. It's credible. That is verse 22 to verse 23. Number 13, he challenged them with reasonable and verifiable facts. He challenged them with reasonable and verifiable facts. That is verse number 25. Let us read that one. Verse 25, we read these words. Paul replied, Honorable Festus, I am not crazy. What I am saying and what I'm saying is true and it makes sense. Okay, that is very, very important for you to be able to say, I am not crazy. What I'm saying is true and it makes sense. Okay, so number 14, he admitted the king knew these facts. He admitted the king knew these facts. That is verse number 26. Verse 15, we read, he confronted the king directly with a question. And this is very important. That persuasion speaking, remember, it has to do with helping people. It's geared to changing people's behavior. And he asked him a question. And it is important he would run the question that Paul asked him. That is verse 26. He asked him, let's read what he asked him. Okay, just a second, so that we are able to see what he asked him. He asked him, Then Paul said to Agrippa, do you believe what the prophet said? And before he would answer, he said, I know you do. Okay, let me get that one so that you are able to see it. That is verse number. Okay, then Paul said to Agrippa, do you believe what the prophet said? Then he said, I know you do. That is very, very powerful way of doing persuasion. Then number 16, he prayed with them to obey God. In other words, he pleaded with them. He pleaded with them to obey God. He pleaded with them to obey God. That is verse number 29. Okay, so Benjamin Franklin said something very interesting, because he said, if you would persuade, you must appeal to the interest rather than intellect. If you would persuade, you must appeal to interest rather than intellect. In other words, the goal of communication is not necessarily to talk big words, difficult words. No, you need simply to be simple. Speak in a language that people understand. Talk to them things that they want to hear. Speak to them things that interest them, things that are close to their hearts. When you go to the mechanics, speak to them about cars, talk to them about oil, talk to them about overalls. That is something that a lawyer would not be interested in. Now let's ask our the last question. How can we use our body language? How can we use our bodies for persuasive speaking? Among the strongest of these, so that you become a good persuasive speaker, is your body language. The way you use your body, the way you use your tone, the way you use your hands, the way you use your face, the way you simply use your body is very, very important. And what we are seeing here is that every good speaker must learn how to use your body to the advantage. Remember, the goal of persuasive speaking is simply to persuade, is simply to change, is simply to build an argument. Remember, you'd want a person to change from here and go from there. So it is very important that you are able to change you use your body and use it well. So we will propose 7 things that we believe can be able to help you. Number 1, ground yourself. In other words, we are saying stand with your feet apart at armpit width to create stable and steadfast presence. You need to stand when your legs are not holding close to each other like this. You need to stand when they are wide apart, and when your hands are wide apart. That kind of posture actually says that you are strong, you are energetic, you are confident. Number 2, move purposely. We are discouraging you from wandering, from pacing aimlessly, or moving just for the sake of moving. Make your movement calculated, especially when you're putting a point across. It's always better to move closer to the people. Sometimes in communication, when you want people to get the message, it's always, especially when you're sitting down, to lean forward instead of leaning backward. When I lean backward like this, it simply means that I am not interested. You can imagine if I communicate to people this way. I am leaning back, my hands are folded like this. It simply says that I am not interested. I am aloof, I am arrogant. But when I lean like this and I'm using my gesture, or when I am speaking and I'm pacing, towards people, I am not stuck, and people keep on following me, so it's just that they are not staring at me. They keep on changing, especially when the stage allows, do it. Then we are saying make strong limited gesture. A lot of gestures here and there and there and there and there actually are distracting. What we are simply saying is that to make calculated, very limited gesture. When you are telling people like this video, you are doing like this. I am appealing to you. That's a gesture that I'm making. The singular gesture that amplifies an important person is the word that adds to meaning. Make it clean, we are saying, and make it limited. We are saying use your facial expression. Listeners, it's very interesting that listeners decide in part whether to trust someone from facial expression and the look in speaker's eye. You can imagine I am speaking to you here and I am looking this direction. My eyes are this direction. Of course, you will think I am not interested in you. But when I'm looking at you like this, it shows that I'm interested. It shows that that person loves you and values you. So it is important that you look in the speaker's eye and make sure that your face is not expressionless. Where there is need to smile, please make sure that you're smiling. Where you need to demonstrate anger, please do it anger. Where you need to laugh, just give a laugh. Make sure that your facial expressions, the words are matching. So you do not want to say I love you with a dry face. You need to say, I love you, in a way that shows you truly love them. If you're sitting down, we've said this is the fifth thing. We've said, if you're sitting down, sit up. This is sitting up, okay? And lean forward. Sometimes you can lean backward. Sometimes you can sit upright, okay? Number 6, watch how your listeners respond. This is in physical setting. Once you notice that people are flipping, when you see people are flipping their books like this, or people are, are yawning, or they are jiggling their feet, it simply communicate that their attention you are losing their attention, and so you need to engage them very quickly. Number 7, build an interaction. Building an interaction, one of the quickest ways of building of keeping a audience or building a interaction is when you engage. You can ask them, you can ask them to stand and do something. You can sing a song. There are those pastors who, once they notice that they have lost the audience, they would give a song that is appropriate with the message, and the people are encouraged and people feel persuaded and motivated and inspired. You can ask people to do the notes so that you don't lose them. Dwight D. and so said something I find very, very interesting. This is what he said. I would rather try to persuade a man to go along. I would rather persuade a man to go along. Because once I have persuaded him, he will stay. If I scare him, he will stay just as long as he is scared. Then he is gone. This